Good afternoon, everyone. This is Suhi Sanjana Mehzabin, Chairperson of IEEE Buoy Student Branch WI Affinity Group, Vice Chairperson of IEEE Buoy Student Branch. Here with me, I have Sattaki Bonik, Chairperson of IEEE Buoy Student Branch, Shakil Anwar, General Secretary of IEEE Buoy Student Branch, Shubhrata Bishwas, Treasurer of IEEE Buoy Student Branch, and other executive committee members of IEEE Buoy Student Branch. It is our honor today to welcome you all to the fourth Tech Talk of webinar series, themed Research and Innovation Challenges during COVID-19. This is jointly organized by IEEE Buoy Student Branch WI Affinity Group, IEEE Buoy Student Branch, IEEE Bangladesh Section, IEEE SPS Buoy SB Chapter, and IEEE EMBS Buoy SB Chapter. Let me introduce our moderator for today. Our moderator for today is Dr. Celia Shahnaz Ma'am. She is a senior member of IEEE and fellow of Institute of Engineers, Bangladesh. She is a professor of Department of IEEE Buoy, Dhaka, Bangladesh, and chair of IEEE Bangladesh section. She is the advisor of IEEE Buoy SB WI Affinity Group, advisor of IEEE SPS Buoy SB chapter, chair IEEE SPS EMBS Bangladesh chapter. And now let's get introduced to our speakers for today. One of our speakers today is Dr. Vaideki Vijay Kumar. She is Associate Professor of Schools of Electronics Engineering, VIT Chennai, India, and Chair of IEEE WI Madras Section 2015 and till 19. Dr. Vaideki Vijay Kumar graduated from Government College of Engineering, Tirunelveli Valley in the year of 1997. She received her post-graduation and doctoral degrees from Anna University. Her research areas include wireless networks, ad hoc networks, Internet of Things, security for wireless networks, IoT security, medical image processing, machine learning. She has got more than 15 years of teaching experience in reputed institutions. She has published more than 30 publications in IEEE, Elsevier, Springer, and other peer-reviewed journals. Dr. Vaideki Vijay Kumar is an active IEEE WI volunteer for more than 15 years. She was the chair of Madras IEEE WI during 2015 to 2019 and improved the WI membership in Madras section. She acted as the chair of first ever IEEE WI International Leadership Summit held at Chennai in 2015. Dr. Vaideki is presently working as Associate Professor in the School of Electronics Engineering, VIT, Chennai, and serves as the IEEE Student Branch Counselor there. She is instrumental in initiating the Women in Engineering SPAG at her campus, in addition to few other society student chapters. She is keen in fulfilling the mission of IEEE by motivating students to develop technical projects to solve everyday issues of the common man. Dr. Vaideki is serving as a member in the project subcommittee of SITE in 2019 and 2020. Another speaker of ours today is Mr. Koruthu P. Varugese, Head Clinical Engineering, retired, Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute for Medical Sciences and Technology. He is a chairman of IEEE EMBS Kerala chapter, chairman Assessment Committee IBSC. Mr. Koruthu completed his postgraduate from the Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore. His area of specialization is biomedical signal processing and instrumentation from IIST Bangalore. From CMC Vellore, he joined the Biomedical Engineering Department of Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute for Medical Sciences and Technology, Trivandrum. He took the postgraduate diploma in computer application from Kerala University. He has an MBA in marketing and an MBA in hospital management. He took the Six Sigma Black Belt in quality control from Indian Statistical Institute, Bangalore. He retired as Engineer G and head of the Division of Clinical Engineering from Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute for Medical Sciences and Technology, Trivandrum. He was also in charge of the clinical attachment of the MTech program in Biomedical Engineering at SCT-IMST. The MTech program is conducted jointly by IIT Madras, CMC Vellore, and SCT-IMST, Trivandrum. He is the external guide for the AMIE degree program in electronics and telecommunication. Currently, he is the chairman, Assessment Committee, Indian Biomedical Skill Consortium, IBSC of Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone. He received the Young Scientist Award from the Kerala State Council for Science, Technology and Environment for the development of India's first alarm system for patient ventilator. He is the recipient of around 6 patents from Indian Patenting Authority, India's first multimedia biomedical engineering gallery at Kerala Science and Technology Museum is his own brainchild. A medical device, external pneumatic compression equipment, EPSE, for deep vein thrombosis prophylaxis prophylaxis, which is now ready for technology transfer at SCTIMST, is his own idea. The total computerized maintenance management system for medical equipment from planning to disposal, including asset management, is his own development at SCTIMST. A unique item equipment coding implemented at SCTIMST is his own innovation. He was also instrumental in preparing a biomedical equipment management and maintenance manual to Government of India under National Health Mission. The concept of heats is his own vision and brainchild. Organized 30 series of heats when he was at SCTIMST. He had received several national and international awards. He is also serving as a technical member for several government bodies. He served as treasurer, secretary, and chair of IEEE Kerala section. Served IEEE in several major roles. At present, he is the chairman of the IEEE EMBS Kerala chapter. He was also instrumental to other sister professional societies as the chairman of the Electronics and Telecommunication Division of the Institute of Engineers, India. Kerala State Center, Secretary of Institution of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering, Trivandrum Center. Management Committee member of the Computer Society of India. His membership in several professional bodies like IEEE, IEI, IETE, CSI, BME, SI, AS, IUHE, and ISOR. Thank you. I'd like to request our moderator, Dr. Sheila Shahnaz ma'am, to take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjana, for a humble introduction. It is a great honor to call Vaidiki my very close friend. We have been working together since 2015 with that first ever Women in Engineering Leadership Summit in Chennai. I was a speaker and program committee member there, and we really worked very closely. And Mr. Korothu has a lifelong experience, I should say. So a few days back, Mr. Korothu has hosted my webinar. It was participated by many participants. Thanks, Mr. Korothu. And I felt that will be an honor for me to introduce his experience to our generation and many others. It will be. So actually, Vaidiki, I want to celebrate people's achievement. I want to try to return back any honor I receive from anyone. So this is actually, this is a learning for my students also. So it will be when Sanjana was reading the bio, every day when she reads the bio, I always remind people, please listen to the bio. These are not just a bio. These are the celebrations of contributions of the person behind it. Each line is thousands of hours hard work, which cannot be measured by anything, which can be only felt. Really, I am a really hardworking person from my childhood. And no matter, I don't believe in any limitations. I don't believe in any locality, country. I believe that if you have merit, if you have that hard work, your resources are not at all an issue. So you can do anything. So with that said, I feel the contribution of these bios that Sanjana has read. So I request everyone to feel the same and to contact and follow them. If you need any help through me, I will reach out to them and they will help you. I know they're a very productive and very cooperative person. So this will not be a webinar for all of us. Listen to them. If you find, of course, you will find something which you have never heard, because every speaker has a unique thing. From a speaker, you will hear something which you have never heard before. So try to find out that special point from the speaker and try to think how you can fit yourself to them and try to reach out to them. So with that said, if Mr. Korothu gives me permission, I want to go with Vaidiki first, right? Not because of she is a woman. Let's go with Vaidiki first. Thank you. Thank you for your consent.
Thank you, Celia. Thank you, Sanjana, for the nice introduction. Thank you, Satya.
Vaidiki, you should come closer to the microphone.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it audible now?
Audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So at the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Celia for inviting me for this Tech Talk webinar series. As Celia said, we are friends for more than 5 years since the ILS, and I think we met again during the ILC at California. Then she came to Chennai. So we have been meeting on a regular basis. So thanks, Celia, for inviting me for this webinar and making me to meet such a wonderful spectrum of audience. So we have participants from India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, and I could see many people from different parts of our own country. So thank you so much, and thanks to all the organizing units of this particular webinar. So my today's talk would be on, could you all see my screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So it is knowing your children during COVID-19. So this is just one piece of my research work I'm going to discuss with you today. So as Sanjana was introducing me, so I'm dealing with IoT security.
Come closer, come closer.
Yeah. So I was dealing with IoT security, and then for wireless networks security, and then medical image processing for brain tumor detection, and then I use signal processing for agriculture for disease detection in rice crops, because rice is the major food in Asian countries. So we have developed one CNN based algorithm for detecting the rice crops. We have developed our own green field, and we have tested on the practical field, agricultural field. So, doing research with UG students, PG students, and research scholars, it's really good. And as an active volunteer of IEEE, I always believe in applying technology for common man's need. So that is why all my research works will be oriented towards something related to the society, something related to the humanity. And it is not just for the sake of getting published or for, getting a degree. So this talk of mine today, knowing your children during COVID-19, when I gave this topic initially, Celia mailed me back, Vaidiki, this is a technical talk and you have given me a topic which sounds very generic. I said, Celia, this is my recent research topic. So I'm just going to tell you about that. So very quick agenda, the introduction, and then past, present, and future. So that's what we'll be discussing now. And a quick introduction about where I belong to. So I'm in VIT Chennai, which is recognized as an institute of eminence by Government of India. And it is also awarded for its innovation. And it is among the top 3 of the world universities as ranked by QS World Ranking. And, if time permits and if, Allah ki mercy, so you should come to this campus, which is a 170-acre eco-friendly green campus. Celia, next time when you visit Chennai, you please come to this campus. Okay, so it's a wonderful campus. Yeah, thank you. So for the introduction part, we know all about children. They are very determinate sometimes, they are funny times, and they are very serious, and they look, what do you know about life? Like, my son once said something happened in our home, and he said, in my 11 years of life, I have never seen such a thing. And that 11 years of life seem to be very bigger for them. And such a statement is coming from an 11-year-old kid. That is what I would say. And sometimes they wish to work together, and sometimes they prefer to stay alone. And sometimes they become very funny, naughty, all sort of emotions you can have with children. And but more importantly, whatever be the emotion, whatever be their behavior, ultimately they love us and we love them back, without any condition. So my today's topic is my research on the specific learning disabilities. So that is why, I did not want to put the specific term on the title slide, and I gave the title as Knowing Your Children. So this specific learning disability is this group of disabling conditions that hampers a person's ability to listen, think, speak, write, spell, or do mathematical calculations. The very important aspect of this specific learning disability is that the child could read, okay, and it is having enough intellectual quotient to understand what is being provided in all these things, and they have the normal psychomotor ability. They are not autistic children, they are not mentally retarded children, Okay. And they do not come from an economically disadvantaged background, and it does not have anything related to the culture or the demography or the environment, nothing. So the children is as healthy as a normal child, but still it has some hindrance to the ability to listen, think and speak, or do some arithmetic calculations. So when the child suffers from this sort of disabilities, we say that the child is suffering from a specific learning disability, and there are different types to it. So specific learning disability could take the form of dyslexia, where the child would be having difficulty in reading. I mean, when you have a word was, saw, when you have similar sounding words, or words with similar letters, then this child would have difficulty in reading. Then if the child is having some problems with arithmetic calculations or numerical calculations, then it is referred to as dyscalculia. And if the child is not good in having good handwriting, so since most of you are belonging to our neighboring countries, I think that you would have seen this movie called Tare Zameen Par. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So most of our Indian parents came to know about this specific learning disability, I guess, only from that movie onwards. Earlier, we did not know that there is a item, or there is an object called specific learning disability, and that prevails in a very healthy child of very rich background, or economically strong background family. And this dysgraphia is when you do not have when the child does not have a proper handwriting, or it has difficulty in understanding what is written. And then dyspraxia is it is like having some sluggish movement, which when the child does not have proper physical coordination among its various organs or parts of the body. So my research was focusing on detection of specific learning disability, because when I did the literature survey, I realized that there was not a single tool to identify all the types of specific learning disability. Most of the literature, it talks only about dyslexia, which is about this reading disability. So that is where I started researching. And when you check on the statistics, this is a statistics from US, and I tried several websites for statistics from any of our Asian countries, especially for India, but I could not get it. What I could get for India is the dropout rate. So when you check the dropout rate as given by Indian government, is that in 2015 to 16 itself, around 3 lakh students have dropped out of this primary school education. Now remember, this 3 lakh dropping out of primary school education is a major critical factor which we need to focus on. Because when you lose 3 lakh children in the primary education itself, then this is the right time that we have to check why these many number of students are dropping out from the primary school education, and what is the major issue. So this statistics I could get from this I mean from US Department of Education, especially for the Officer of Special Education Programs IDEA database. So you could see in this, the specific learning disability is the major prevailing factor for learning disability. That is 33%. And other impairments or other physical disabilities are comparatively lesser. And there was one more article again based on US. Out of the several country people who are staying in US and who are residing in US, the Asians have lower rate of the specific learning disability compared to other white races. But though this is not a very encouraging factor, we need to address this kind of issues and see what should be done for these kids. And in developed countries, there are many schools for special education. They identify the specific learning disability at a very early stage, and they give special education for the children who cannot compete with the regular children. And the children having specific learning disability, they have so much of psychological issues, because in our culture, especially in our Indian culture, we have a huge academic pressure on kids. They go to school from third year, when they are 3 years old, right? And then we are expecting them to write different languages. When they are 5 year old, we expect them to write five languages, read and write 5 languages, and speak fluently in 5 different languages. And when the child lacks any one of the potential, then we start doubting the child. Then both teachers and parents, they pressure the child for coming up that weakness. and that becomes a huge pressure on the child, and then it resists to go to school, and that is how this much dropout rates are coming into play. So this is the right time to check for identifying the specific learning disability at a very early stage. So these are the some of the screening techniques which have been already carried out at different parts of the globe. So the first one is referred to as iDyslex, which was developed by some of group of researchers in Malaysia. So it is a computer based test in Malay language, because most of the screening tests which are available, they are in English language. And the child, when you are planning to detect the specific learning disability at an early age of just 5 years, 5 to 6 years, then you cannot expect the child to have that much fluency in a foreign language, which is English. So many of the researchers, they have tried to incorporate the screening test or solutions to identify the disability in their own native language, and that is what I have taken up for my research as well. So it's a computer based test in Malay language, which has got 5 modules, and it tests the different skills of the child, or the different learning abilities of the child, like listening, reading, and puzzle solving, and the IQ. And in all the research articles, the major point is that first the IQ level will be tested, and only if the IQ level is equivalent to that of the normal child, then the child will be considered for the screening for other learning disabilities. Because as I mentioned, the child with the learning disability is a very healthy and normal child with all equivalent mental health like a normal child. So that is why this IQ level is been first identified. And this one has got 97.96 accuracy, but I have marked this with red color ink, because it is considered very less amount of school students. It has considered just 49 school students, and you think about the population of Malaysia, and it has been tested only for a very just not even 50 number of students. So we cannot consider this as a very effective tool, but we can consider that this one type of screening technique is available. And one more was developed in Greece, again in Greek, and that is it's using this rapid eye movement technique. I mean, tracking the eye movement, especially on the fixations and saccades. Fixations are nothing but when you read a text, you just stare on a particular word or on a particular phrase for some time duration, and the saccades or the rapid eye movement between the fixations. And the fixation and the saccades are definitely different for normal children and the children with the learning disability. Okay, so with the children, the setup is being created for understanding the eye pattern of the children. I mean, the movement and how fast they are moving between the words, or how long they are staying reading one particular word. So this database is being created by creating a setup. So there was a computer, and there was two high resolution cameras recording their eye movements, and then especially this fixation and saccades were determined, and that has been compared with the standard values. So it has got 94.2 accuracy over 78 children. And then there was a handwriting analysis using convolutional neural network, and that was developed in US. So there was a test created with 3 sections. The first test was just to write some 10 words, and these 10 words are considered to be difficult words for dyslexic children, and those 10 words were dictated, and the child has to write the correct spelling of it. And then a passage was given with a few sentences, so that to understand how fast they are able to switch between the words, how fast they are able to complete. And there was a story writing test, in which they are supposed to write a story within 3 minutes. Okay, and then the handwriting image was treated, and it was compared with the handwriting or similar test that has been conducted over a normal child. So there was a standard database and a controlled database. These two databases were compared, and then the results were produced. So it has produced an accuracy of 55.7. So all these things were happening across the world, and especially in India, we do not have much of computer based test. There is one app that has been developed by Indian government, which is called DALI, that operates on 4 languages: Hindi, English, Marathi, and Telugu. So but this is a manual test which has been reported by researchers, and multiple assessments conducted through different camps. So when you conduct such kind of research, the difficult part is to get the data set, because we do not have a standard data set. Like, if we want to do the classification program on animals, so we do not have a standard data set for cats, dogs, then lions, and so on and so forth. But that data set is very much available. But when you consider having a standard data set for such kind of problems, it is not available. Then you have to go and create a data set of your own, because we are focusing on a demographic basis research. So when you go for actual field research, then there are several issues arising. First thing is, you need to get the parent consent. First thing, you need to go and approach the school, and the school has to permit you. Then you have to pick up the right group of students with proper IQ level, and for that you need to conduct the IQ test. And for conducting any sort of test with the child of that particular age, we need to get the consent from parent, and that is the toughest part. Because all of us, as you have taken the survey, all of us want our children to have all good things in the world, and we do not want a third person coming and saying that your child does not read well, your child does not write well. We do not want anyone to come and report to us. So getting the consent of parents is very difficult, but still they are able to conduct different camps. They have conducted 15 camps, and they have tested 582 children, and in that they have identified that 23.8% had learning difficulty. So, this is a very huge number as far as this Indian population is concerned. So this is really a rising issue. And then in another part, I think in Jaipur, there was an assessment conducted. It's a 3-section assessment. And I'm sorry, this is in native use, it used in native language Tamil. And I think this was conducted in a village near Vellore. I guess our other speaker would be knowing better, because he was doing in CMC. So this was conducted somewhere near Vellore, and using the initial test, they classified the children whether they are having learning disability or not. And for the children, for those who they decided that they might have learning disability, they suggested for a clinical assessment. And out of the 259 participants, they identified 78 as having different, some form of specific learning disability. Either some child might have simply dyslexic, or some child must have the combination of dyslexia and dyscalculia, and then they have been referred for clinical assessment for further validation and advice for parents. And what we did, what we are doing for this kind of research is that we started developing a website to conduct a dyslexia test. So we initially started with the dyslexia, then we thought we will add on other features to incorporate the screening tool for dyscalculia, dysgraphia, and dyspraxia. So this is a test for dyslexia. It consists of several components. So first one is to offer questions based on letters processing. So you could see, the first row, it is Q and H. The normal child would immediately able to identify which is Q and which is H. But since the dyslexic children have difficulty in identifying the patterns and identifying the letters properly, so they will take time to identify the letter, or they will incorrectly identify the letter. So similarly, whichever letters could cause confusion with the children, those sort of letters have been identified, and questionnaire were prepared accordingly. And then for image processing, identifying the proper animal using the sketch given. Then for word recognition, again, you could see it is bill, bull, hull, hill. So if such rhyming words and words having similar letters, if you give that as a question, then the child really has difficulty in differentiating the particular word. And there were few phonological based question. There will be an audio which will say that pick the 5 rupee coin. Right? Again, this is sort of image processing, but it also involves this auditory processing, right? So using different sets of question to test the different abilities of the child, then a fuzzy based decision was developed. So we wrote a set of fuzzy rules based on the score and the response time. So the score is, I mean, for each question, the score is 1 if the child gives the correct answer. And the response time for each question was noted, because there were different sets of question pertaining to different skills. One is for auditory and one is for visual, and other one is for letter identification and other one for word identification. So based upon the response time lapse for each and every question, a set of fuzzy rules were written, and all the fuzzy rules were collated for each and every student, and then the results were decided. And it was conducted with a set of students on one particular school. Again, we had difficulty in identifying the school. We reached out to a couple of schools, private schools. They did not agree to take this test. And then through one of our students whose mom is a teacher, she got permission from her school, and then the test was conducted. So this is actually is based on English language only. So we used this for standard I mean class 5 students, because we cannot expect a child belonging to 3 year or 4 year to differentiate the different words based on the spelling. So that was given as a test for class 5 children. So the research and challenges during COVID-19. So we have created this website, and we have tested a very to a very small group of children in northern part of India. But our main objective was to test all the government school children, okay, because the government school children are comparatively economically, they are lesser in category, and their parents are not much educated, and the awareness of this learning disability is very low, very poor in such a scenario. So we want to have that awareness spread among the rural parts of our southern part of India. But that is the challenge. We have come up with the result, but we are not able to validate these results with the medical practitioners due to this COVID-19. And then we wanted to reach out to several schools, because the data set could be created only by performing or only by carrying out field studies. And we have several government schools in and around our own locality, for which we could get permission from the educational officer. But the thing is, due to this lockdown, we are not able to reach out to the children and conduct our test and then get the feedback, then validate it, and then give some suggestion to the parents. So the research is just started, and we have developed just a prototype part of this screening tool for detecting the specific learning disability in the early ages of children, which would reduce the dropout rate of the children. And we will also be able to identify the difficulty of the children, and we will be able to give a proper suggestion, or we will be able to give a special education for the children, because those children will be very good in doing this creative work, like making a movie or creating music or creating arts. So depending upon their potential and skill, we can suggest a proper education for them and proper career opportunity for them. So that is our main objective. And in future, we are planning to develop a mobile app, so that the child could take up the test on its own without any parental guidance, or without any manual interference. So that is the main objective of our research. So once this lockdown is over, we are planning to reach out to several schools as much as possible, and then develop a machine learning algorithm, because we had got a very small data set, and we are okay with the fuzzy set of rules. But when you have huge data set, then we want to go for machine learning algorithm, then discuss with pediatricians and the occupational therapists for the better understanding of the specific learning disability, and then go on a very high scale to different schools and cover the entire rural part of our South India. So that is our objective, and we are focusing on that. Hopefully we will be able to complete our research and spread the awareness about this learning disability. So as during this COVID-19, I would like to request all the parents over here, or even if you have siblings, or if you have some cousins, relatives, you inform, or you make aware of your aware to your parents that if this child is suffering, or if the child is finding difficulty in learning, it is not just because it wants to dodge the learning system. It is because that it is finding it really difficult. So the parents should take utmost care in the learning potential of their child, and then be open to the screening tools, and take up the results in the positive spirit and work better for the future of the child, because that is what we are much worried about as a parent, that we are worried about the bright future of the child, and let us not spoil the spirit of the learning of the child. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vaidiki, for sharing your research about
Yeah, thank you,
SLD.
Celia.
Yes, it will be very good learning for all of us. Actually, we think about our academic accomplishment, publishing in high impact factor journals,
Yeah.
but we many of the cases we do not try to relate it to the community. So Shatuki and my all student branch members, they know whenever I come to any problem, first thing I ask that how it can be implemented in the local community, or how your research are solving one of the problems around you.
Yeah, that's true.
And what are the applications of your research in the local community? How it will change the life of people around you.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
your
that's more
work
important.
actually, yes, your work actually inspired all of us. And it's not very difficult. You are doing CNN, machine learning, fuzzy logic,
Yeah.
nonlinear things, fractal dimension, and those are the things we use. But try to use them for such topics,
Yes.
because I'm very emotional about it, because in 2013 the site group of Bangladesh was formed under my leadership. We call it Site Flash.
Okay.
So just after formation, so there was a call, Region 10 project call from Region 10. And then it was a new group, but still I had the courage. I, along with my small team, inspired and submitted the application. It was for developing a tool for autistic children, but your is different.
Yeah, different.
The
Yes, that is what
autistic
it's
children,
totally different.
that
Yeah.
how it can improve the teaching and learning of autistic children. And total 17 proposals were submitted from whole Asia Pacific.
Okay.
Only 4 were
Selected.
accepted.
Okay.
One of the projects was from our,
Oh, great.
that the project lead, my lead student was Tanveer, and he is now one of the famous game developer in the world. You just
Okay.
search about her.
Oh,
So, but
great.
that was our first project.
Okay.
And Tanveer also went to SS12, Chennai,
Okay.
Kumaragulu College of Technology.
Oh, yeah.
First SS12 in 2013.
Yes.
And that team with that project, okay, that also became second prize winner.
Yeah.
So the SS12, Ramalata ma'am started
Yes. Yeah.
in 2013. And that time Bangladesh is the only country that is the international. Now SS12, SS12 has many pilots, but when there was nobody, we were with her, Ramalata ma'am. Thank you. So if there any question, Professor Dr. Shahab Siddiqui, you work with such, he is from Pakistan, and he actually is a very good researcher, and he works with people with such people. Dr. Shahab, do you have any question? Any question you can write in the chat box for Vaidiki, because I basically know that you work with.
No, I don't have any particular question, but just raising a point that when I work with blind and deaf people, and also students autistic students and dyslexic students, we made a learning system for them, the school-going kids, for different classes. And for blind and for deaf, they usually say that they are not disabled, they are enabled with extra power. So that is the thing that I was want to raise that over here. That as you are saying that there are normal children and there are some special children. So we should not use those terms. This is just my idea, so that we can have a feeling of the parents and of the person, so that if you're working for some noble cause, then you should go for the words. Also, I use two types of def in my chat. One is capital D def and one is with a small d.
Okay.
The capital D def are the people who are using their sign language. So they are proud to be deaf. Proud means they are proud to be having their own language, sign language.
Okay. Okay.
So people who are using sign language, they use themselves as capital D def. And by small d def, they are the hearing impaired people. So they are using devices to listen.
Oh, all right, all right.
So these are the two terms which I learned in 2014 and 15. Since I am then working with them since 2014, and I have different applications, small applications built by my students. So I deliver to them. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking me to share a few words.
What Dr.
Thank you, Professor.
Vadiki,
Yeah.
well, what Dr. Vadiki is doing, actually, that is the learning disabilities. It is very difficult. Sometimes the parents, they cannot understand it. And there is, if the people in the rural village, they really cannot understand it. And sometimes the son and daughter is become 14 years, 13 years,
Yeah.
still they cannot realize it.
Correct, correct.
So if we can publish or work more on such things, then such awareness can be created from the very beginning.
Yes.
And your children with learning disabilities can cope up with the children of the normal behavior from the very beginning, because if we develop a lot of technology, lot of survey, lot of analysis, because analysis will lead to develop many apps, and that apps will help the children, and that apps will help the clinic. So is there any more questions, Shartuki, in the chat box? Student, you can unmute yourself. You can ask. Please speak up.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Is it audible?
Yes, yes, it's
Yeah,
audible.
audible.
Yeah. Yeah. This is Dr. Anita.
Yeah, tell me, Professor.
Working as professor in Sri Vidyaniketan Engineering College, India.
Okay.
So, ma'am, I appreciate your work that you have
thank you.
taken towards children disability.
Yes.
And I think a lot of courage to take up that work.
Definitely. It would be so emotional, as Celia was mentioning. Really,
Yeah.
to deal with any research related to children, you will become emotional, especially when you are a parent.
Yeah. So actually, I'm also doing the same in the same line.
Okay.
That for elderly disability, even blind people,
Okay.
whether they are at middle of the life or by birth or elderly. So if they
Okay.
are disability with blindness,
Okay.
so for
Okay.
that I'm applying the same, that is machine learning and AI technology, and even I applied
Okay.
for project also. So,
Okay.
ma'am, I have a small query that have
Yeah,
you
sure.
completed this work? Have you experienced or have you completed any experiment on this basic experiment?
Experiment in the sense, that is what I said, we have developed the website with set of questionnaire, and that has been tested over a group of school children.
Okay, okay.
And we have applied the fuzzy results, but we are yet to validate on the accuracy part of it, because based on the fuzzy rules, we have decided, okay, these children have some, issue with the learning, but we have to validate that with the clinical assessment only. That is not happening due to this, COVID-19, because we need to convince the parents and to come for a counseling session, then, discuss with the doctor.
I think it's a bit difficult.
Definitely, yeah, that is what I said.
Experience, that means you are already experienced.
Yeah.
So it's
due
a
to
bit
this,
difficult.
COVID-19, we are not able to, make this connection between the parents and the, clinical assessment. So that is what we are not able to validate our, accuracy.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
First,
So we
only
are nearby your
identification.
location. Yeah.
Identification. To summarize, the identification based on the surveys, only the identification of which children are having learning disabilities and what type of, right?
Exactly.
Classification.
Yes. Yes.
So at first the test data came as a student. It can be normal, or it can be children with learning disabilities. So at first what they detected, whether a children coming for test has this the learning disability or not.
Yes.
And
And we have
if,
got a class. Yeah, and we can say
yes,
that this is the child who could probably go to the other side of the spectrum.
spectrum.
If the child is
And
not
also,
completely normal, then there is a set of classification. It is not just two classification, normal
of
and with
course,
learning disability.
yes, then you classified what
Yes,
type of
yes.
learning disabilities.
Then we have to go for some more tests. It is not just
Okay.
a single test that would come to a conclusion. Okay, this child is having dyslexia or this child is not. But we need to have more number of tests to validate our results.
And not only that, what is the learning for the younger generation? If you adopt such work, the next step is validate it, assess it through the doctors,
Exactly.
assess it through the parents.
Yeah.
So these are the different stakeholders to complete the whole scenario. It's
Very
not
correct.
only the subject, it's the other
Aspects
stakeholders
of
who
it.
are
Yeah.
observing. One is researcher who is developing it for the people who are the target group, and there are other stakeholders like parents, clinicians, and also the technology developers, sponsors, who will test it and find it, what is the cost analysis to develop any product or learning tools. So the different stakeholders, they should come forward to complete this research. Am I right, Vaidiki?
Yes, definitely. You're correct.
Good evening, madam. I am Dr. Sujata from India.
Yeah, good evening.
I'm having a small doubt. Any great work what you consider for physically disabled students and all?
No,
That is
one correction. It is not for physically disabled. Please, there is a small
Yes,
correction.
yes.
It is for the children with a learning disability.
yeah, learning disability.
Yes.
But what time that is you are using fuzzy logic, but in
Yeah.
the fuzzy logic output we are considering either yes or no only. That means
I'm not.
whether
Yeah, that's what I'm not considering fuzzy logic. I'm using fuzzy set of rules.
yeah. But what is the output you are considering, madam? Whether it is there or not only will consider. What is yes or no only?
Yes or no, based on the score, we have one more classification also, whether the child is probable to have a learning disability.
But in the probable disability, there are many types of disabilities as there, no, madam. But by using fuzzy, we cannot go for all these different types of disabilities, I think. Because
no, we are talking only about the learning disability.
Yeah, but we are getting whether it is there or not only by using fuzzy.
Yes.
Instead of that, you can go for next that is AI techniques and all, so that we can go for like in depth about different.
Yeah, that's what we need to have a huge data set to apply machine learning or AI algorithm.
Yeah, data should require more data.
Yes, and we need to have several features.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sujata. Thank you, Sujata. So we'll connect. Sujata and Vaidiki will connect. You can talk offline. And now we will move to Mr. Karathu. Please, time is yours. Let us share your experience. We are eager to listen to you.
Hope I can share the screen.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you can share it.
Hope you can see.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, good evening to all. After listening a nice lecture. I know that you all are maybe tired or something like that. But thank you for the nice introduction, and mainly for the comment about BIOS by Celia. It's really interesting. And thanks for Celia and your team for inviting me to this particular program. The presentation was prepared thinking that it is for the IEEE students only. So I hope my presentation will be beneficial to all. And everybody can think of new innovative ideas and new areas which is not invented by anybody else. Since it is for the students, I am planning to show you some practical examples of engineering applications in healthcare rather than giving a lecture. I hope this will give an idea about the various areas where engineering techniques can be applied and taken into. See, our students are our strength, who will be the backbone to reshape the future of healthcare. But before entering into the subject, let me say my experience on Bangladesh. Several times I thought of visiting Bangladesh. Somehow I could not make it up. Most of the time, whenever I plan a visit, some other program will come on the way and I had to cancel the program. Last time I got a chance to come up to your entry gate during my visit to Meghalaya. I thought I will just share one slide of it. This is the view of Bharat-Bangladesh Maitri Gate. Now that is India-Bangladesh Friendship Gate. And this is a view from Bangladesh to India. What you're seeing at the backside is India. And this is from India to Bangladesh, because my wife was also at that time with me. And at the center, you're seeing a white stone. Sorry. Okay. I think you can see a white stone with a black top written India 1275. This is the boundary stone separating India and Bangladesh. This was a real experience for me. Okay, once again, let me express my sincere thanks to the IEEE team of Bangladesh for giving me an opportunity to visit you virtually through this electronic media. Let us come to our topic, engineering applications in healthcare. You all know about the, nowadays everybody is talking about COVID. So everybody is much aware of their health and their healthcare system. Due to the pandemic COVID-19, the demand for healthcare support devices are very high. The government is encouraging the engineering industries to come up with new devices and equipments for healthcare, as the government alone cannot cater the need. The engineers are struggling hard to invent new ideas and products. The government is also giving grant for the projects for engineering students, especially to the students, to come up with new ideas. Even considering the seriousness of the situation, IEEE EMBS, that site is providing special fund for the projects. I think Bangladesh students have also got the projects. So I wish them to come with new projects, new innovations in this area. See, there are heavy demand for respiratory systems, personal protective equipments, masks, sanitizers, like that. So many equipments are needed. See, the main thing is engineering application. It's an exciting and emerging interdisciplinary field, as you know. But the engineering applications play a key role in healthcare. Wherever we go, whatever you see, they are all, you can see engineering applications. There is almost nothing without engineering. And there is no limit for this combined growth. See, here you are seeing a very common gadget. Because why I have shown this symbol is because, you know, there are innumerous equipments, innumerous number of simple to complicated equipments in engineering applications. But this particular thing, it's a very common item. See, have you ever thought of the engineering application in this? There is no sophisticated sensors inside. There is no battery, no switch to switch it on and off, but it is working. It's a simple application of technology. So our new innovators, students can think of new ideas to come out with the new equipments. See, when this diaphragm is put on the chest of the patient, doctor can hear the beating sound of the heart in his ear. See, here what you are seeing is the application of science. See, this particular thing is the same, but at one end you can see a USB. Only the modification is USB, just an application. See, when that USB that stuff is connected, it is connected to a telemedicine. Here, the doctor who is far away is listening the heart sound of the patient through his headphone, and the patient can see the doctor through the monitor. The distance between the doctor and the patient is minimized. This is a great advantage of application for engineering in healthcare. And only one technician is required at the patient end. The technician must be a technically knowledgeable person. So we used to say that the medical technician is nowadays being transformed to a biomedical technician. In future, all the medical technicians will be transformed to biomedical technicians, because without engineering application, there will not be any equipment. So the main advantage is, by the application of engineering in healthcare, remote health checkup is possible. Things which we thought impossible are becoming possible now. See, here you see the same stuff. Here you see stuff with a screen display. You can see the waveform of the heart sound or the heartbeat there itself. The decision can be made instantaneously and fast. There is no need for the doctor to send the patient to take the ECG. If it's very critical, immediately he can take. That is, immediate medical attention is possible. Main thing advantage is time management. Delay in decision making is reduced. To some extent, the process of taking ECG can be avoided. Hospital expense is reduced. Cost reduction for the patient. Here you are seeing an ECG waveform. See, 4 electrodes are connected to the patient. And here you can see a transmitter, and the waveform is available in his mobile phone. Or there is a Apple Watch is also there. This is a wearable ECG device. So immediately, if the patient is sick, he can send the signal to the doctor. The time lapse in getting treatment is reduced. Unnecessary ambiguity of the patient is reduced. If treatment needed, it can be done without wasting time. There is tremendous improvement in healthcare by application of engineering and unimaginable changes. Efficiency improved, productivity improved, tremendous improvement in patient access, quality and reliability of information improved, data management is easy, drastic improvement in time management, even the cost of visiting the hospital time is also reduced. See, engineering applications also helped in improving prevention, diagnosis, treatment, management of illness, etc. It's already there. Okay, here the main thing is, now everybody is talking about corona. All are seeing this picture even every day through the visual media. This is how corona looks under a microscope. That's if you want to see the coronavirus, you need a microscope. You see, this is an image of a corona under a microscope. The engineering application of the light, you know about the microscope, not going to tell detail. But if you want a much more detailed investigation, see, there are different type of microscopes. Because of the engineering application and because of the need for this one, there are different type of microscopes have developed. If you want a much more one, you can use a thumb, that is transmission electron microscope. See the height of the microscope, it is almost hitting the roof of the building, a very big microscope. Here, see, this is the inside of the microscope. I'm not going to say in detail because of short of time. First microscope, it was using light, but here it's using electrons. All the condenser lines, everything is electron coils that is there. But if you want a still further checkup, you need an scanning electron microscope. See, this picture is showing to you the application, only the size difference. You are seeing a small microscope here, which is on the tabletop. But this is another microscope which is almost having the height of the roof. And this is a scanning electroscope, which is only 1/3 of this one. That's the effect of applications in engineering. Engineering applications in healthcare, there are many applications. These all are developed because of the need. Artificial intelligence in healthcare, it's a vast area. If you are going to say the robots. Now, for COVID, we have already fabricated robots for treating the patient. Then you can see the hand. You see how many sensors are fixed already in the palm. And the other one is a artificial heart. In this one, mainly what I will say is, see, the doctors are doing surgery with the robotic surgery. The patient is away. But lot of innovation and researches are going on in this particular area. But for research and innovations, we need reliable informations. See, as an IEEE member or our students, where will we go for the research? So mainly I want to for the students is see our publications. We have lot of publications. You can see the information, everything here. And moreover, your data, your information, or your research work also can be published in that. Your membership of IEEE is your entry point or your entry gate to the digital world of informations. And what EMBS says is your global connection to the biomedical engineering community. If you remember, you can contact anybody, anywhere in the world, get any information about this, you can interact and all those things. Okay. And because of this one, this is imaging. See, if you want to see the inside of a body, you need not go for any surgery. You can do an MRI or CT, then do reconstruction. You can do any type of cut. If you want a longitudinal cut, you can do it up. If you want a horizontal cut, you can do. This is purely an engineering application, software engineering question, 3D reconstruction. Let us come to a specific point. That is a nerve system. See, nerve system controls our entire body. For all our normal activities are being controlled by this. Nerve system controls things like walking, speaking, swallowing, breathing, learning. Everything is controlled by the nerve system. Even it also controls how the body reacts to emergencies. Let us take a specific disease here, Parkinson's disease. It is a brain disorder that leads to shaking, stiffness, difficulty in walking, difficulty in balancing, difficulty in coordination. And this is the procedure for that deep brain stimulation, DBS. This is a surgery done by doctors, but this particular case I have taken because you can see clearly the lot of engineering applications. This will give an idea for the engineers or budding engineers to think of several ideas, which area you can work. See, deep brain stimulation is a surgery to implant a device that sends electrical signal to the brain area responsible for body movement. Electrodes are placed deep in the brain and are connected to a stimulator device, which is similar to a heart pacemaker. Everybody has heard about a heart pacemaker. This is also like that. This is called a neurostimulator, and it is uses electrical pulses to regulate the brain. Here, this is the stimulator. Stimulator is kept here. From here, you can see a wire is going directly. From there, a needle is put, and this is going inside the deep into the brain and stimulating. Very simple thing. See, a deep brain stimulation is approved by FDA to treat for a number of conditions such as dystonia, epilepsy, essential tremors, obsessive compulsive disease, Parkinson's, etc. And this deep brain stimulation is also being studied as a potential treatment for addiction, chronic pain, cluster headache, like the lot of diseases it is already being given there. This particular picture I have given because just to give you an idea about the size of the pacemaker, brain pacemaker. You can see the hand. There are different type of pacemakers are there. So this is just to give you an idea of the size. See, this is a picture showing you. Here we are putting the pacemaker, and from there a wire is being taken. You can see a red wire here is a connecting wire. It goes up to here. From here, it goes, an electrode is put directly, and here, this particular area, you are stimulating, you are giving pulses. The main thing is you have to find out where exactly actually this should be stimulated. You have to find. That is the main applications of engineering in medicine. For this, you need a particular stereostatic system. You see, it's a pure engineering thing, pure 100% mechanical thing. You can see the graduations. It has a arch, it is already there. This is having a micro drive. And see, this arch is made because, see, okay, this is placed on the head of the patient. So through the arch, you can move it to anywhere direction, and which are the places. This is the stereostatic frame, this is the electrode drive, and this is the arch. This is showing you an operation theater. A surgeon is doing a DBS surgery. And the patient is there. But see, the surgeon is concentrating on the monitors, not the patient. Because in the monitor, every information is in the monitor. By seeing the monitor, he can do the surgery. Yeah. That is, before doing the surgery, the main critical thing is, after fixing this frame, the patient has to be taken to an MRI room, and MRI should be taken. From that MRI, complete analysis being taken. This one, just a small video I'm showing it just to illustrate how it is being done. See, it is very simple. You have to drill 2 holes. Then you have to put the 2 electrodes, and there is there, and you have to stimulate it. It is very simple, but the complexity is there. You should know where we have to make the drill, which position should be taken, and through which area you have to put the needle. Because once the brain got damaged, that damage you can never recover it. If you are inserting that needle, if you are cutting some blood vessel or some vital part, that is the end of the patient. So you should find a pathway exactly for the correctly thing. This also I have taken from the net only. This is just to show you a video how the surgery is being done. This is mainly not to show you a surgery. You can think of all possibilities of engineering. Sorry. See, this is the treatment for Parkinson's disease. See, you can see the patient cannot even wait. He is shivering. He cannot control the movement. Right side is completely shivering. And the patient is under preparation inside the theater. Now, it's assembling the head frame. See, that's a complete engineering design. Doctor, nothing has to do, just to simply screw the thing. There you are seeing it, 2 pin he is putting it up. The frame is fixed on the head through that pin only. And this is the real engineering applications. Because the thread, the material, everything is there. Patient is somewhere only. He is fixing the frame on a frame. And then see all the screws, everything is so nicely made so that for the surgeon, There's no complication, nothing else. Blindly he can do it up. Then this frame should be mounted on the head of the patient. So it is fixed on the patient. You think, and you see, mainly it's a stone because you think of so many ideas for making a frame or making something else anesthesia. This is marking the central area of the patient. It's marked. Then you have to give a small anesthesia for putting that pin, you know, so the patient should not feel the pain. And then that pin is already given because the frame is resting on the head in that pin only. Then fixing that reference area is marked. Yes, mainly for engineering application, only that reference area. Because when you are going to the patient for MRI and the reference is the mounting the localization set. See the design of that particular localization set and even the material, everything so chosen. So the engineering applications, electrical, mechanical, everything combined is the engineering applications. And the patient is moved to an MRI room from the theater. And the patient is taken an MRI. The most of the time for this one is being used in the MRI only. We have made a 3D reconstruction of the patient. Then the MRI picture of the MRI, the patient can go somewhere else. The MRI picture is taken and we have to identify the area. I think I can skip this a little fast. Okay, here actually each slice of the MRI is found out and the location for this the area where it should be stimulated should be found out. This already after finding out only this patient is posted for surgery, but still that is found out. And there is a horizontal, you can see there is a baseline is already decided. Then this is the area where it is needed. They are checking whether they can do a needle like here or some other place, because that inserting that needle area is very critical. This is a pure software engineering applications. They are saying it up. So now all the coordinators, XY coordinators here, another area is thought of seeing this one. Then different possibilities are thought of. Then real preparation, real planning is done in the MRI room only. See, this is the area needed to be stimulated. Then this is the way how they are going to plan the needles. They see one by one it is being removed and 100% it is identified. And then 3D reconstruction of the patient and this frame is already made and is fixed. Picture, everything is finalized. This is the most critical area. If this area is 100% perfect, the surgery is perfect. Just this is purely 3D reconstruction and software engineering only. So, okay, sorry, I have to the last. So, okay. From here, then what the by the time inside the operation theater is already fixed, then checking the coordinates, and then the frame is taken. The patient is somewhere only. You know the MRI seeing. See, this is the target. Actually, this needle is the area where it should be stimulated. So frame is fixed there. As per the calculation made in the planning stage, everything is fixed. Fixing, you can see it is simple. There is no complication, no complexity. Just one or two screws they have to fix it up. The angle is already finalized. Screws and everything. You can see how perfect engineering design is already there. That is the micro drive. They are going to fix the micro drive already. It's there. It is just inserted. Even selecting the material, finalizing everything. These all involves engineering applications. These all are engineering applications. That is the needle. Just inserting that needle and checking whether the needle is going to the excited location. That is a verification before the surgery. And the patient is not at all there. On the table, verification. See that target area. That needle is touching that particular place. After this verification, that needle will be pulled back a little. Let's see by the screw. He is pushing it back, pulling it back. So just to know the reference area. Then that area, this measurement, this checkup is over means surgery process, everything is over because nothing else to do. See, needle can be put in the excited place, excited location, it will directly go. So this frame should be put on the patient head. See, simply you can put, there is nothing else because it's already planned, it's already programmed, everything is done, the proper engineering is already done in that. The frame is fixed there, wherever the screws is already there. So that this is the area where it is marked. In that below, this is the area where you have to put the needle. This particular area. So anesthesia injection is given, and a very small cut, very small operation only being cut. You can see that skin only is cut, not much bleeding or anything, nothing to worry. The patient is conscious. That is a suction machine. You can see each tool prepared for removing this one. Each tool is engineering applications, not anything alone. And that area is marked. It is rechecked whether that's a drill area which is marked. Drilling that area is properly marked. That is a drill. That the skull should be drilled. See, developing the drill itself is a critical thing because this drilling machine immediately stops as when the skull is through. It will not be work beyond that skull area. Then again, with the putting that needle, it is being checked whether it is exactly in the same position only. You can see the trimming tool. Trimming tool is already there. Removing each appliance, you have to see the thing is there. For each appliance, needs special skill of engineering. That bend, that texture. If you want to remove a small piece of bone, that also you have in a small cutter. You see that area is being cut. That is for fixing the clamp. You need that cutting. And you can clean that particular total area. Suction is there. You can see no bleeding, nothing is there. Everybody feels that surgery means something great. But surgery is great. Immediately it is great, but nothing to worry. Recheck to that particular area, whether how much length it should go there. Now they have to open the dura after this particular cases. It is removed. Then this one cap should be, clamp should be fixed there. Even that material, the diameter, the screw, material of the screw, thread of the screw, everything involved engineering applications, that particular things. Then fix with that particular, rechecked again. Then once that is confirmed, that area is confirmed, the screw, both side screws already fixed it up and is made firm. And now dura is being cut and removed. It's a very simple surgery, but see in this one the application, engineering application is huge in this one. Because now see the complete system it is there. Now once that area is fixed, screw and everything is finalized, and micro screws are there. Their particular area it is finalized. Now inserting the needle. Insert the needle into the particular area. The measurement they have already made. That needle is already gone. Once that needle area is finalized, the screw, all the screws are adjusted. Now remove all the gadgets from that area so that they can insert the electrode, which is for stimulation. And you see even the diameter of that, okay, that is the particular top for inserting the needle. Now that is the syringe. In that already a white mark, you can see the dimension is already marked. So they can simply insert it because that white mark is the final thing. So nothing to worry, just insert it. It will go directly to that safest area of the brain and it will reach that particular area. Then electrical stimulation, the wire is being connected from the simulator. You can see, depending upon the number of channels, you can connect all the wires. Then finally, after connecting everything, the earthing wire should be connected. You can see that earth clamp is connected. Then everything is over. Now everything is over. Now you have to simulate and check whether the work is going okay, whether simulation is working fine. Just amplitude is increasing. Amplitude is increasing. Yeah, right. See, the signal has come. That means it has gone. Now the signal is gone. Now you have to check because previously the patient is unable to control the movement. Now So you have to see whether it is excitedly stimulating that particular area. See, his hands are moved and the waveforms are checked. And now we'll ask the patient to move his hand, because he was not able to move his hand his own. We are telling him to lift the hand, See, he is moving. There is no problem. It's perfectly done. That stimulation is excitedly done at the correct place. Now you have to decide the ampere rating and current rating for that stimulation. And once it is in the correct place, you have to, this is the current rating. Then once that is finalized, stimulation and everything is finalized, once it is confirmed, this stimulation is done by an external stimulation. Now all that needle will be taken back and you have to put the real original electrode for stimulation. See, designing that electrode itself is an engineering and measuring part is an engineering. So the measurement scale is an engineering part. Here that clamp is fixed. Now the electrode is being taken. Now the measurement was already taken. On a scale, you measure the length, put a mark there, how much depth it should go. You can see a white mark there. It's correctly placed. And once that marking is blindly, the surgeon can insert it. There is nothing else inside that. It will go only through that particular area. It will 100% touch the target. And see the beauty of engineering applications in this one. Once it is connected there and correctly, because after inserting, you have seen previously it was removed back a little, so that area they are inserting it inside and confirm that it was excitedly touching that area. That means the surgery is over. Now that area is removed, things are removed. Now you have to close that particular area. Then wires has to be taken, all the electrical wire, stimulation wire has to be taken out and put in the proper way. See, selecting that wire, material, smoothness of the material and everything. Now, all this one, and then final cover should be fixed. Now see, then after that covering area, they have to, this is first area only, they have to simply duplicate the other area. Other area I can go faster. You have to make 2 holes. See, this electrode is being done. Okay, this surgery has gone fast. Surgery of the second part is over. Checking that it is there. Inserting the needle. Same procedure for the second area also electrode is being put. That's correctly. Then second area is also closed. And after that, see that now they have to pull the wire in a proper way so that connections and everything should be properly placed inside. 100% biocompatible cable and everything inside. If the cable is there, there's no problem. The location and the area where the wire should go, which way everything was planned properly. After that surgery, see, very simple, very small surgery. That surgery is over. And basically, mainly I selected this particular thing just to show that the applications. After a few weeks after the surgery, the device will be tuned down because few weeks we have to give for proper curing and everything. Here is the pacemaker you can see below and electrodes are on the top. Okay. Without engineering applications, there is no modern healthcare. I hope this will give an eye-opening to all engineers to think of new ideas, new areas. Not thinking of equipment alone or just like ECG, EDF, MRI, something. There are no wide area of applications for engineering. I hope this was useful for everybody. Thank you. And thank you for permitting me.
Thank you, Mr. Korothu. It was a visualization of engineering applications in the medical science. Hope it will bring together electrical and mechanical students together, and it is an interdisciplinary research. and also civil engineers, because sometimes when you are implanting something in the muscle, then the strength of the muscle needs to be evaluated, which is completely a civil engineering mechanics topic. So your talk will open up many, many new questions, many new inquisitive ideas among the students, that how we can break barriers and think about usually what we think about biomedical. Actually, it is a really biomedical instrumentation where our electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, civil engineer have a great deal of this. So there is one question: is it possible to artificially program water droplet to perform operation instead of let me see, instead of solid operation tool? What the participant is asking to innovate, or is it possible to use artificially programmed water droplet to perform operation instead of solid operation tool? Because it looks like a nut and bolt. So what is your idea about it?
What we normally say is everything is possible. There's nothing impossible. Now what we are seeing is which was impossible was possible. On previous days, you see, now what we are doing a surgery even without touching a patient. We thought it was impossible. Now we are doing a surgery and the patient is even far away. So it's really possible. So once there was a question, can you do a surgery without touching a patient? Without lasers, we are doing a surgery. Laser, we are not at all seeing. So this also, somebody can do some innovations, may be possible. I am not saying no, it's possible. There is no word impossible in biomedical engineering, mainly in engineering technology.
Especially since now COVID is going on. So if this type of surgery is needed, we need another intervention, that is from robot. Now these things will not be controlled by the human being. So this operation should be done by a robot. That is called surgical operation.
That's why
that is another interdisciplinary area which is very much needed now. So let us think about it. So another question, implementation of artificial intelligence in healthcare domain. Of course, it's not only this operation. So Mr. Kurusu, can you want to shed light about it? Is it possible to implement artificial intelligence in healthcare domain? Of course.
That is why I just showed one slide somewhere there. Yeah, you are seeing my screen or no? Are you seeing my screen? Hello?
No, sir, it's not visible.
No, sir.
You have to share the screen again.
No, okay. If it is not okay. So already I have shown one slide there inside, then the different application, there is one is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, now, many area we are using artificial intelligence. And with the implementation of artificial
I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah. Pardon? Hello?
Maybe something else. It's okay, carry on.
Yeah, artificial intelligence being used, it can be used. And it is being used also.
Yes, actually artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning are hugely used nowadays for X-ray, CT, from X-ray and CT, that COVID-19 detection, whether the patients have, I myself is working on that. And also in our research group, our past chair has published one paper recently for COVID-19 detection using X-ray images. So deep learning can be applicable for any network, like a modification of CNN, modification of ResNet, modification of other capsule network. So there are a lot of network available. So you can modify it, you can redesign it. to make it applicable for finding whether the person has COVID or not. So to answer you, it is possible to use artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning for biomedical research. Am I right, Mr. Korothu?
Possible, and some area it is now being used also.
Yes, of course. It has, it's not only the software and paper publication. In many places it is in use. So, Shartoki, is there another question? Tell me about any mechatronic system in medical health. Mechatronics, the whole system that Mr. Korothu showed is a kind of mechatronics because it is a combination of electrical and mechanical, right, Mr. Korothu?
Without mechatronics, nothing, because our normal ventilator is a mechatronics.
Yes.
Ventilator, you know, complete, it's an hydraulics, it works with mechanical things only, inspiration, expiration controlled mechanically, 100% it is there. So in most all applications, we are using mechatronics. And mechatronics is a backbone of biomedical engineering.
So this is a very perfect example, ventilator for COVID-19, as an example of mechatronic system in medical health. So I do not see any more questions. Shartoki, do you want to, and Sanjana, do you want to say thank you to the speaker?
Yes, ma'am. We'd like to thank Dr. Korothu Borogesi sir for a wonderful presentation. We got to learn so many things about, especially the surgery, because the engineers, we don't actually get to see how these are done actually. So we got to see from your presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So the session was very insightful. We learned a lot of things. Thank you so much for your time.
We have our SPS chapter chair, Shubarno. Shubarno, can you say hello to Mr. Karosi? Shubarno is very talented. He's working with different medical images. And also we have Shubroto Bishas. He is also working with different 2D images. Hello, Shubroto. And we have also Tariqul Islam. These are all talented students who are working with machine learning and deep learning. So they are actually running this SPS, CMBS student run chapters. These are interdisciplinary chapters. They are not only the student leaders, they are actively involved in role model research so that others can follow them as a volunteer leader also. They are technical leader as well as that professional leader. So Shubroto, do you want to say anything?
Hello, madam.
Yeah, Mahendra.
This is Mahendra Prasad Nath.
Yes, Mahendra.
Regarding that artificial intelligence, I want to say something. See, now we are implementing because I am also a research scholar. Also, I am a software professional having more than 7 years of experience.
So Mahendra, what is your question?
No, I am telling that artificial intelligence concept also implemented in the healthcare domain with the chatbot.
Yeah, it's the
in chatbot, so that is an automated response you will get. No one has to be in the back end. So if a person has some query regarding the hospital, regarding the doctor, or what are the treatments available in the doctor in the hospital, then from the chatbot it can get automatically. No one has to be there in the back end.
Yes.
So that thing is in a very high progressive nature, and also I am creating a chatbot for one of my for my client, Blue Shield of California. It is a major healthcare domain in US.
Yes, chatbot is a substitute of apps where you are using the artificial data science and other things.
Yes.
That is a different type of chat. So sometimes we want to get information, we search for website, we search for Facebook,
yes.
And we look for apps. So your chatbot is a kind of bot, I should say a robotic bot that will be a substitute of apps and substitute of website, substitute of Facebook, but it has to be affordable to all, and it has to be reachable to all, right? So that everybody should be capable of having a chatbot, right? Mahendra, please think about it. That how?
No, see, see, madam, what is that? Chatbot is nothing but, for example, you are using some messengers. For
Of
example,
course.
consider WhatsApp. Everyone
Yes.
now, even a small kid with 2 year, 3 year, he knows how to chat in WhatsApp.
Yes.
So chatbot is just a user in such kind of messenger.
Yes.
If
A
you think
substitute
high
of
to
WhatsApp
that,
and Facebook.
so and also the cost of preparing the chatbot is very less.
Yeah, but I understand. But how you will give a chatbot to the person in a rural community who do not have messenger? You
That
have to
will
think
take time.
about it.
Got
Yes,
it. That
please.
will take time.
That I was telling. I know
Yes,
what
yes,
is a chatbot, and our participants also understand that
yes,
usually when there was no machine learning, people used to see a web platform to find all information. People used to see something in all information. Now there is a machine learning, so you are replacing app with a chatbot, but chatbot is useful to people, a person who are privileged like me. But think about a woman
yes.
who are
That thing
in
is
the
there.
tax area. So that your research is very good, I appreciate, but we have to make the research scalable,
Yes,
sustainable, so that it can be useful by any people of any corner of the country or any corner of the world. So I will request you to think about it, how you can
yes. I will.
expand your research to more people. Thank you.
Yes,
Are you,
yes. Thank
you
you.
got the
Thank you.
point? You got the point?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mahendra, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
I like to thank our respected speaker for his insightful knowledge sharing. And I want to thank all the valued participants for last 4 days. I have a statistics. We have, I should say, let me give 1 minute. We have participants not only from different parts of Bangladesh, we have participants from many states of India. What fascinated me, I have seen participants from Bhubaneswar. So that is near Bay of Bengal, and we are also part of Bay of Bengal. In some cases, we are similar. We are following the same seashore, same sea culture. And Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Malaysia, Iraq, Australia, Japan, Indonesia, Nepal, China, Singapore, Albania, United States, and Peru. That means we have covered not only region 10, we went beyond region 10, region 8, region 6, and Peru, region 9. So that's the benefit. That's the, I should say, I will thank our student branch chair promotion team because of their huge hard work, and really it happened, and also because of the high quality speakers. People joined, people felt interested to join, and people didn't leave. Even we have exceeded time. So thanks to the valued participants, thanks to our hardworking volunteer, and most important, thanks to our resource person. Mr. Kurutho, hope we will do real collaboration with you. I am EMBS chapter chair in Bangladesh. Also, you are EMBS chapter chair in Kerala, and our EMBS chapter has won the Outstanding Regional Chapter Award this year. So this is a great honor to share it with all humble submission. But winning an award is not the end. We have to retain it, and we can retain it if we can continue collaboration with such resourceful person.